Hey guys, good morning. Happy Friday to you. It is FYR Friday. This is the day we talk about agent attraction on the eXp Realty platform, figuring out how to fund your reason using all of the resources available to you. And you guys are in for a treat today. We have been on a theme of independent brokerages and top teams because, anytime there is change, right? We find that most people, really anywhere when there's change, they do the deer in the headlights, right? It's the deer in the headlights. They stop. They don't know what to do. Then a lot of them do the ostrich after that, head in the sand. And it's I'm going to wait until this is over, right? People don't move, all that kind of stuff. However, talent recognizes opportunity. So the first people to move, once kind of once that wave hits of big change and other things happening in the industry, the first group to really take hold of it and do something with it, those are the people that are driving success, looking for more, building big things. And they didn't get there by accident. They got there because they responded well to opportunity. Change is always opportunity. So the reason we're talking about this now is with those other changes, there's actually a little bit less movement in general out there from agents. Agents are absolutely still moving, but there's less than your typical, right? I mean, I've been recruiting agents for almost 25 years. And we know all the cycles, we know what happens in the markets and everything else like that. And there's still a little bit of either deer in the headlights or ostrich, right? But talent is moving. Talented agents, teams, team leaders and stuff, they're seeking the opportunity. They're going, hey, I know this is opportunity time. I know this is like the tsunami. When the tsunami comes through, the former tallest buildings aren't the tallest buildings anymore. You got some new tallest buildings. This is the opportunity. So that's what we're talking about right now. Top team leaders, top agents, and broker owners are seeking the opportunity. And so we need to know how to get their attention, how to introduce them to this opportunity, how to talk to them and everything else. So I have brought on my friend, Garth Wade. Garth is, it's been, I'll say only 12 years. 12 years is in real estate is a lifetime. But I think it's been about 12, right? Right, Garth, doing this?
Yeah, 12 years.
Yeah. So in 12 years, check this out, because some of you guys have been doing this longer. In 12 years, he sold over $1 billion of real estate. All right. That's a lot of houses. He built a 4-location independent brokerage. So sold a ton of real estate, was able to build his own company, build his own business, bring in a bunch of agents, recruit a bunch of producing agents, and expand that out over multiple locations where, it's hard to do it once. It's really hard to do it 2, 3, and 4 times. Those repeat, that's like your sophomore album and then releasing future albums. And are they going to win or not? But then when, like great leaders do, you get to a point where you've built something successful. And we talked about this last week, where you go, okay, great, I've built something big, but now all of the necessary 80% is taking a lot of my time. How do I go to the next level? And you leveraged out all the administrative stuff. You leveraged out managing of your business. So he merged his business platform into the eXp platform, so eXp could handle the broker stuff, the business stuff, the accounting stuff, and all the other stuff. And he could focus on leadership and growth and opportunity. And so he successfully did that here. He's been bringing on an average of 10 agents a month since he got here. Okay, so listen up. And but also he has helped other independent broker owners make the move to eXp, explain to them why this is a good opportunity from his experience and how to do it. So I'm going to shut up now and let him talk, because he's the one you want to hear from about this. So Garth, thank you, brother. Thank you for being here. We're excited to hear from you today.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation with you all. And you're absolutely right, Dave. It's a very specific process when it comes to talking to independent brokerages. So I merged in with eXp a couple months more than a year ago. And in that time, I've helped 5 other brokerage owners merge their brokerages in with us, and I'm working on a 6th one now. The way to do that is to identify why they built a brokerage. Let's get straight into the meat. Why did they grow the brokerage in the first place? Can they still do that in a different vehicle? What are their current pain points? And do they even want to grow? And here's why. One, if they can do and accomplish everything they originally built the brokerage for, they didn't build a brokerage to build a brokerage. They built it for a different reason. They built it because they wanted to be a leader. They built it because they wanted to pivot out of the business. They built it because they didn't want to do sales production. They built it because their sales production was too big and they wanted to focus on something else. They built it because they wanted to mentor. They built it because they wanted expansion of their personal impact. If any of those things are true, they can do it better at this platform. So if you look at the value stack, and this is how I explain this motive piece, if you look at the ability to value stack people because of the 7-tiered structure, it allows us to give the agents a better experience. The average independent brokerage has less than 30 agents. They usually have somewhere, well, most of them have less than 4. But if you look at the ones that are successfully trying to expand, they're usually between 10 and 30 because each individual physical location has approximately 33 on average, regardless if it's a franchise, an independent, or whatever. Average physical location has about 33. And what you'll find is they are running the whole show. Because let's take a moment and do some math. And this is the important part. You guys have to understand the math aspect of this so that you can explain it to them. They know their books, but half of them don't. They don't really know their books because they don't have a accounting department. They don't have people that are running it for them. They're usually laissez-fairing it around and don't really even know their own numbers. So it's important that we do. Let's take some math for a second. If they have 30 agents, which is a fairly successful independent brokerage, and we know, based on industry averages, each agent's probably going to be producing about 3 deals a year. That means that brokerage is going to produce about 120 transactions a year, unless they are a superstar brokerage or they're running leads. Those are the two differences. But let's say they're doing 120 deals a year. Well, the average brokerage that I have found that's independent is charging 80-20 with very low fees. Now, when you have to incorporate your E&O and your L&I and your B&O taxes, depending on your state or your city, then you look at the numbers. Let's just say I'm a random brokerage owner in the middle of the country, and my average deal is $10,000 gross commission income, meaning I get $2,000. Really, let's just make this easy for the sake of argument. So I get $2,000 per deal coming in. Well, here's the problem. That's not how it works. You'd think, oh, okay, I'm going to make $240,000. Well, no, because the reality is of those 30 agents, right, we're going to have about 6 of them that are going to hit their cap. And those 6 are actually going to be producing about 20 deals a piece, right? Or not quite 20, let's call it 10 deals a piece. So half of the entire brokerage is dependent on 6 people. Most of the time, those 6 people are going to have a cap, let's say, and pretend they're even a quality brokerage and they're able to get caps of $20,000. So that's $120,000. But the problem is they only have half the brokerage or half the numbers left, a little less than half the numbers left. So in reality, the actual gross income of that brokerage is somewhere most likely around $180,000 to $200,000 a year. Because of that, we haven't even addressed any overhead expenses at all. Let's say they have one office location. The average office location of 2,500 feet is going to run you approximately $3,500 a month, depending on the market center that you're in. So if you look at that, you're looking at about $50,000 in basic office cost. You're only at 180. Now you're at 130, and all you did was pay for the office. Now you have to pay for software systems for the paperwork and the compliance. If your MLS doesn't already offer Authentisign, then you have to be buying Dotloop. If you don't have compliance software, you have to buy SkySlope, Brokerment. You have to buy paperless pipeline, something to that effect. That's going to be another $500. So that's another $6,000. We're already down to $124,000. Now, we don't have any staff. We don't have anything but one piece of technology and an office. Now, to run 30 agents, I'm going to be very candid with you, you need at least 2 people to do it when you're small. That's part of the great part about EXP, because it allows us to have a lot of scale. because some of these products become less expensive with scale. Employees become less expensive with scale. So 2 employees, let's say you have a administrative assistant that helps you, and then you have a manager. Well, first off, you can't hire a manager because the manager is going to cost you close to $100,000, and now you're non-profitable. So guess what? You as an independent broker owner, you're the manager, and you hired yourself to do it. So that's number one. So you don't get that option. Let's say you just hire an administrative assistant to help with daily tasks, paperwork, and some compliance stuff or whatever. That person is going to say, let's say you're able to pay them a small fee of $50,000 a year. Well, guess what? Taxes is going to hit you with another 8, and you're paying closer to 60. So all of a sudden, that was 124, by the way. You're paying closer to 60 to hire the one person. Right now, you're going to make approximately $74,000 to run your brokerage. That's the metrics. That's assuming you're not doing anything ancillary or auxiliary. You're not giving them extra things. You're not paying for websites. You're not doing anything else but have one person, a physical location, and basic compliance information. That's it. So you're making $74,000 to run it. And you have to do the paperwork, the compliance, the mentoring, the training, and everything. Here's the rub. If you are a high capacity person and you're out there building a brokerage, you probably had a production business before. So here's what's interesting about that. If you had a production business before, you were probably, before you start a brokerage, making $200, $300, at least $1,000 a year, maybe more. Some are making $1 million more, whatever. It doesn't matter. But the point is to do it, you have to actually have at least half of your time has to be dedicated towards the brokerage. So if half of your time is dedicated towards the brokerage, you are then saying that the opportunity cost of your time is only $150,000 a year. And these individuals are making a lot more than that. Here's 2 caveats. The times where you see that brokerages feel like they are profitable is because the brokerage owner is producing a lot most of the time still, and they're not pouring into the brokerage, and they are counting their own production towards that total income of the brokerage. Or number 2, they're running a leads shop. They're paying for Zillow, they're paying for lots of ads, they're paying for lots of pay-per-click, and they're disseminating, and they're running a team structure, and they're taking large splits without caps based on those lead flows. When you do an analysis of a brokerage's profitability, you have to eliminate all of the personal production of the broker and all of the lead flow percentages and cuts, and only look at the brokerage splits and fees, because there's no reason they can't still run that same exact operation without owning the brokerage. There's no reason to have that extra liability and the extra overhead. They could be at a brokerage that allows for teams and do the exact same thing. So you have to eliminate all of that out of the calculus. That's where most brokerages come into a large amount of issues when they start to think about things like selling the company. Now, nobody ever thinks about the exit strategy when they create a brokerage. And here's the reality of the exit strategies of the brokerage world. 1, you grow and expand until forever, and hopefully you pass it down to your kids, but that'll never really work, almost never. Like basically that's a long shot in the dark that will just never happen. That's number 1, and it's not realistic. Number 2 is you try to build it big enough and profitable enough that it's a sellable asset. Here's the problem. Agents are commodities. We move around like flies, right? They're like, ooh, there's fruit over there. I'm going to go over there. Oh, there's fruit over there. I'm going to go over there. And because of that, because of retention issues, especially of independent brokerages, it becomes less valuable. So I'm going to give you the breakdown of what a brokerage's true value actually is. Let's pretend in this example that I'm making $74,000 a year. Okay. This same example, I'm holding the same one. I'm making $74,000, but I'm the manager. And I want to sell this brokerage that I built, and it has 30 agents in it. And we're doing 120 something deals a year. Does anybody have a guess of what that brokerage is worth? Anybody raise your hand if you have a guess of what that brokerage is worth?
Not much.
Nope, that's okay. It's worth nothing. It's legitimately worth $0. $0. Do you know why? It's worth $0 because anybody buying that brokerage needs a manager in place. They are not going to buy it without a manager in place unless they're going to hire you as the manager for that exact amount. And if you're making $0 net and you're willing to take on the $74,000 deal to work the brokerage, they're making no money. So no, it's worth absolutely $0. So there's no exit strategy for this example brokerage. I'll give you guys an example of mine. I built to 4 offices and 137 agents. We were producing, I don't know, about $300 million in sales a year. When we did the evaluations, the reason I started delving into, I'll take one pivot. The reason I started delving into EXP was we were looking at expansion. We said the only light at the end of the tunnel is to pass these different benchmarks where there's different problems. There's different pain points based on the different sizes of brokerages. And we said the larger we can get, the less pain points we're going to have. So we were looking at expanding across the country. That was our goal. But we ended up getting a couple offers to sell the company. Now, the offers weren't bad. They were good sums of money. But I'll give you a breakdown because I can't say who they were. They're still shopping and they have NDAs. But what I can say is we were getting about $290,000 or so a year in actual net profits. That's outside of paying for a CEO, all managers, all assistants, and everything. But to do that, just so everybody understands, I was charging 70/30s, $100 a month. I had $500 per transaction fees, a 2.25% servicing override on every deal, regardless of cap. That's what allowed us to actually have a strong enough profitability to be worth buying in the first place. And we set up the entire infrastructure for it. Now, what a brokerage is worth is, at least today, is worth very little. But in general, it's somewhere between 3 to 4x your net per year. So when you do that math, you say, hey, that brokerage, the one that I built, was worth somewhere around $1 to $1.5 million, depending on the valuation and the metrics and the company buying it based on the cultural fit. Here's the rub. You don't get all that money if you sell the brokerage. It doesn't work that way. What actually happens is they give you what's called an earnout period. So they'll say, hey, we'll buy it on these terms. Great. Like, for example, we'll give you your $1.5 million. That sounds great. Cool. I'd love to make a $1.5 million. But here's the reality behind it. They'll say, well, we'll give you $500,000 to buy it. And then in a year, we'll give you another $500,000, assuming that the brokerage continues to do the exact same amount of production or continues to grow. If it goes down, you'll make less money. If it goes down again the next year, you'll make even less money because guess what? How you get your next money? You wait another year. So you sign a contract to basically be an advocate for this new brand for a 3-year period of time. So you sell it. It's not yours. They run it. If it goes down, you lose. If it goes up, they win. There's really no positive aspect of this. Now, most of the time, if you look at it, because it's a 3-year earnout period, and a lot of brokerages will want to try to offer 3x your net, all you're actually doing to sell your brokerage is working in your brokerage for another 3 years with zero upside potential, and now you get to exit. There's actually no financial benefit for selling it in almost any case. I mean, unless you get like one of those unicorn opportunities where Compass comes around and just throws a big bag of money at you for no reason, like they were doing for a few years. But that doesn't exist anymore because everybody realizes it was dumb. So when you look at that, you say, great, I don't have an exit strategy to pass it down to my children. I don't have an exit strategy that makes any sense to sell it. So your exit strategy, I guess, could be work it and build your income to where you want it to be and then just kind of sit there. That's kind of your option. Or you can find a vehicle that works and operates better that can expand wider. Those are really your options ultimately as a broker owner. And what I found is when a brokerage decides that it is more painful to grow than they want to grow, that's when they start dying. Every single brokerage will come across those points, and there's basic benchmarks when this happens. So if you're looking for a brokerage to go after, you want to go after a brokerage when they have 10 to 15 agents. That's number one. If they're between 10 and 15, you are going to see a brokerage that is trying to expand. They're seeing their first growth pain. They don't have a big enough office space. They don't have the right commercial printer. Guys, I could write a novel about the amount of information I know about commercial printers today. I never wanted to know about commercial printers. I know everything about them now. I've had 7 different printers, and I was trying to be very fiscally responsible by getting a cheap one, and then getting a different one, and then getting a different one, and then getting the laser one, and then getting the ink one. Like, they're finding their first hurdles. They want to expand because they've cracked that 10 broker barrier. So if you see a brokerage that's less than 10 agents, it's probably most of the time either just opened, or it's a glorified team, or it's a owner who just didn't want to be at another brokerage and largely produces and doesn't really care if people join. Okay, it doesn't matter. So if you want a brokerage to pick individual agents off of, find brokerages that have like 8 agents, 8 or 9 agents. Those brokerages are ripe for individual agents. Just call them up. I guarantee you that either they love their broker, or they never hear from their broker and their broker's completely gone. So like, that's 50-50. And if you find the ones where there's absolutely no support and the broker's never there and there's nothing, then they're going to be easy to grab for you. But anyways, they're seeing their first pain for growth right around that 10 to 15, and they're having to pour more money into it. And then they think, it's okay, I'll just get another 15 agents, and then I will be more profitable. I will finally have that residual income that I'm looking for. And so what they don't realize though yet is that they'll need more staff. They'll need a larger office. They'll need more stuff for the agents because they'll expect it because you're now a bigger brokerage. There's less expectation on these smaller brokerages. The larger you grow, the bigger the expectation. And so because of that, you go after the 10 to 15. The next window is between 20 and 35, or sorry, 25 and 35. This is where almost everybody gets stuck. Everybody, and I guarantee you, go look up the office rosters. If you look up the brokerages, they're between 25 and 35. And that's because, one, they don't want to expand the doors and the geographic reach of their physical location because they can't. They're not profitable enough. Most of them haven't set up their pricing model to be profitable at the sizes that they are, or for the expanding sizes that they are. They'll run really discounted prices to get their initial brokerages in, and then they'll try to raise them, and it won't be as successful. So what'll happen is they'll get between that 25 and 35, and they'll realize, wow, we've been stagnant for 3 years. We haven't grown at all. Well, and then you look at it, when you delve into that conversation of why that actually hasn't happened, you realize it's because they actually equate new agents with more pain than they do more benefit. Because an agent that joins an independent brokerage, especially at these sizes, you need, and by the way, caveat, you're not getting a managing broker unless it is an independent, unless you have 50 to 60 agents. You're not doing it. It doesn't make any financial sense at all. So any of these brokerages, the manager is the owner, is the brokerage, is wearing 500 hats. So because of that, new agent comes in. I'm that broker owner. I don't want you. Why? Because when you come in, I'm going to have to pay extra L&I. I'm going to have to pay which nobody thinks about as an agent, but there's actually costs that you have to pay just because you work. Now, alongside that, I'm going to have to train you. I have to train you contracts. I have to train you systems. I have to train you into our product. I have to show you how to do the deals. I have to come in and do all that time. And then you might do some deals, maybe. And what happens is broker owners get very sour to the fact that most brokers, most agents that they bring in don't do a deal for almost a year. Almost a year, guys. You think it's delayed gratification to do prospecting? Oh my goodness. Like it's a whole process, and you're paying money, and you're helping them with their products, and you're helping them launch it, and they start to not even want it effectively. And when they don't want the growth, guess what? They don't get it. And because of that, they see vast stagnation. Because they're not growing, they just sit there. And they just sit there, and they just sit there for several years. And then they have to figure out what to do next. Almost all the brokerages that have sat there at those same agent counts are not going to expand. They are just not going to, at least in their current vehicle. Then, if they were given the opportunity, again, that's not a sellable office either. If they were given the opportunity for a vehicle to operate the same structure as they were already inside of, then you could say, well, what if I gave your agents the ability to row that boat too? This is one of the biggest aspects. Broker owners have to look at agents like they look at deals. If I'm the owner and you're an agent and I get you as an agent, the reason I grew so quickly is because I authentically viewed every single agent that I got as $1 million listing, paying out as an annuity. That's all it was. But the brokerage owners, most of them, are not viewing it that way. And so and by the way, they're the only ones doing all of the work. So they're the only ones doing the onboarding. They're the only ones sending the contract form. They're the only ones training them, all of it. Because of that, they don't see as much growth. If you start to say to those people, what if you weren't the only one growing it? You're not the only one rowing that boat. What if you had multiple partners with you that were rowing it with you down the stream? What if there was a reason that your agents that already work with you would actually want to help you grow? Because right now, they don't. Now, fun fact, one of the reasons I also grew very quickly is I had implemented a similar revenue share component to my brokerage model. At the end, I created a one-tiered revenue share brokerage model, and that actually spurred on growth of 30 agents within 1 year. Just because of that one simple thing, because the agents had the ability to get compensated for helping me. When agents don't have the ability to get compensated for it, they're not going to go out of their way to try to, right? But if they do, then they will. And those brokerage owners don't have to be alone in that growth. Inside of your organization, you're going to have specific leadership and specific tools, hopefully, and trainings and resources that not only that broker gets, but all of their agents get. And that's when it comes down to one of their motives for starting the brokerage. They wanted to be a mentor, a leader. They wanted to have impact. Most of them didn't really start the brokerage because they just wanted a brokerage. They just thought that was the next logical path because nobody showed them a different way. They said, oh, I become a top producer. Then I start a team. Then I start a brokerage. That's what people think the linear path is. And because of that, that's what a lot of them do. They don't necessarily think about all the cogs behind it. And so if they can still have that impact and give their agents a better experience with better tools, better training, better resources, and have their business supported with the growth of their up and downline partners all at the same time to see duplication in their business, then it starts to make some sense. So ultimately, those are the brokerages you want to focus on initially. And then you want to have frank conversations with them on whether they even want to expand. On top of that, you need to talk about the overhead and liability components of this whole issue. So overhead, I mentioned a little bit because of offices and compliance softwares and other stuff like that. But let's get into liability, because most of these brokerages have never dealt with a liability issue. I'm talking about legal issues. I have. Now, I've been sued twice. I've won both of them, and both of them were frivolous. But here's the rub. Here's the rub. When you are a broker owner, you cannot represent yourself. You own an entity. It's not allowed. You have to have a legal representative. So because of that, I got sued. I'll give you an example. I'll give you the one example. I got sued on a TCPA claim. One of my agents called somebody on the do not call list. Seems pretty innocuous. Like, okay, so what? Like, oh, how is this that big of a deal? Well, the attorney and that person claimed that we were doing it as a practice and telling all of our agents to do this all the time. Very tenuous, because I also had trainings about how to do basic cold calling, and somehow they were trying to attach that to calling people on the do not call list. That's not relevant. What is relevant is it did not stop it from costing me over $90,000 to get thrown out. A brokerage that's only profitable for $74,000 a year that gets hit with a simple, frivolous, winnable lawsuit that they have to pay $90,000 for, And by the way, it took a year and a half to come to have them drop it. Basically that broker owner, if they even see one small insignificant lawsuit, their profitability is gone for a year and a half. And a lot of them don't even understand that. So I don't want to belabor that point too much, but what I'll also say is most of these brokerages, they want to see a couple things. They want to see, how do I continue growing? Like most of them, they come to me and they say, I want to see how I can continue growing my current operation. You have to understand that these brokerages are not going to join you tomorrow. They're not agents, right? I'm working on a brokerage that is probably coming over next month, and I have been in conversations with them for 2 months so far. I've had 7 meetings with them. I have met them in person for an entire weekend. I have had meetings with Leo and them. I've had meetings with everybody you can imagine, multiple VPs at the company, breaking down stuff, running numbers and tables with them, everything. And they are still not 100% making the decision. They probably will. I'm 95% convinced they will. But the point is this is not an agent conversation like you can have. You have a quick 30-minute, hour-long conversation. Here's the application, sign it. Doesn't work like that. Here's the other thing. I'm gonna just kind of rant for a little bit, then I'll let you ask some questions. But so here's the other thing. When you are onboarding a brokerage, you guys need to understand the functional way that this actually works so that when they ask you, how does this work? Like, okay, I'm going to bring my brokerage over. How does that work? You need to understand the actual like mechanics behind it so that you can be competent when you're having that conversation. So here's how it works. 1, you're going to run numbers, figure out whether it even makes financial sense, break it all down. And what I mean by that is scrape out brokerage owner production, scrape out lead flow production, just look at the brokerage numbers, look at their liabilities. In other words, their overhead expenses, their software expenses, physical locations, everything else. Then do the math of what you can eliminate based on our vehicle. Then put all their agents individually. You have to get all of their agents' information. And telling that brokerage that it will be 100% confidential is extremely important. And by the way, you have to be a person that will live up to that word. I'll give you an example. I had the one that I was talking about. They have around 50 agents, and they were telling me, hey, we were considering one other option, and you told us that you actually know a broker at that operation that is very unhappy. Can you give us who they are so we can have a conversation? If I did that, I would have locked down that client. I would have. But you know what I said? I'm sorry, I can't tell you that. Just like I give you confidentiality, I give every person that I have conversations with 100% confidentiality, and I cannot break that trust. I'm sorry. Saying that to that brokerage owner, even though it didn't get me the deal immediately, went a long way in terms of respect and knowing that I'm not going to go poaching their agents while they're trying to make a very difficult decision. So never contact anybody at their brokerage until you have an actualized decision from them, or ever talk to anybody outside of corporate or somebody specific if you've gotten their permission. Otherwise, you're going to be out anyways. They're going to be so mad at you because news spreads like wildfire, and agents will run for the hills. They don't want that. So anyways, functionally, this is how it works though. When you have the conversation, you have the math, and they say, how do we actually onboard though? How does this actually work? Well, there's a few different ways depending on your state, but effectively, this is how it pretty much works. The broker owner will start by signing an LOI, or a letter of intent. That is going to basically say, I'm going to move over to EXP. I'm going to do it in the next 45 days, maybe. I don't know. And that's the letter that they sign alongside their application. This is what's going to hold their revenue share spot. So it holds their revenue share spot for what it is. Then they're going to have their agents leave their brokerage and name them as a sponsor before they're even in EXP. When all the agents have left, then the broker shuts down the licensing operation at the brokerage, and they move over and retroactively be placed where they should be in the revenue share organization. That's how functionally it works. Another aspect of this is this. If you are talking about I guess, launching of this product, there's three different things you want to pay attention to. One, how it's actually initially told to the agents. If you're going to break that news to agents, it should not be just from the brokerage owner. It should be from you or some of your leadership in your organization that can properly explain and orate all of the specific nuances of EXP that make this a better opportunity than their current operation. And it shouldn't all happen at once. You shouldn't have, hey, here's a big meeting with all of us. Here's the conversation. It should start with the pockets of culture inside of that brokerage. So for that example, we had 6 of those top producing agents. Those 6 agents should have a meeting of their own. So this is a 2-phase rollout to the office themselves. We start with the high quality, high producing agents with a smaller meeting about everything. And that's like, and you can't give it a lot of time. It needs to be that meeting, then the total office meeting like the next day, because you don't want them talking to everybody else and them getting not incorrect information. So you go producers, full office. Then you do the rollout. Everybody works. Everybody puts the name in. They do the applications. They pick to join or not. Broker owner joins. After broker owner joins, then you create an entire rollout process of the broker owner joining. You want to make sure that it is properly written copy. You want to make sure that it is properly written in a way that would motivate other future brokerages to maybe consider the same thing. It should not be, hey, we joined EXP. It should be, after running my brokerage for 8 years and realizing we were stagnant and there was all these hills and hurdles and overhead costs and all these other things, we have decided to partner with this specific revenue share organization because of this. If you are in a similar situation, please let me know. Because one of the most important things that you're going to learn in agent attraction is you are the most qualified person to recruit the person that you were. And I'm not saying because you didn't own a brokerage, you can't get a brokerage to be interested in working with you. But the most qualified person that they're going to want to work with is somebody who is in their same shoes. So you need to make sure that when you roll out a brokerage, that they're doing it with intentionality, because that's how you get massive duplication from the brokerage to brokerage to brokerage side. Because brokerages will be attractive to other brokerages, because there is a very small community of independent brokerages and franchisees. There's probably like a few hundred in your entire state. That's it. And because of that, they tend to know each other. They will know when something like that happens. And if it's properly launched, you might be able to get quick opportunities right after that. So that was a lot of words in a very short amount of time. Do you guys have any, do you have any specific questions to get into? I know I was kind of just going off onto a lot of different things that were hopefully helpful.
Dude, that was so much good stuff, guy. Hopefully I took an entire page of notes packed top to bottom, and I've done a few brokerages. So hopefully you guys were taking some good notes. What popped up for you all? I know some of you are talking to brokerages and or looking to approach a few. What do you got? Well, we've got Garth here. Grady.
Hey, so do you have any presentation material or calculators, Garth, that you use in this process, or do you just do it all creatively as you go?
So that's tough. There's almost a magic trick that I like to do is I like to tell brokerages their numbers before they tell me. And that really builds fast rapport. So for example, the office that I just recently recruited, they told me they had, 14 agents. And I said, oh, okay. So you're doing just under 200 deals a year, and you're making what, 115,000 or so? And he's like, well, pretty close. I made like 108 or whatever. And I did this and I did that. Right. And that was just off the top of my brain, because I had to assume all of those calculus inside of it. And that comes with time. But when you actually delve into numbers, it's getting them to actually open their books, because you can't have a frank and earnest conversation without opening their books. And you need to know per agent, what are the fees? What are the monthly, if any? What are the transactional fees? What are the splits? What are the caps? All of it for every single one of the agents, line item by line item. And then corporate will actually help you. Now, that being said, I actually have to help corporate. I just this week actually had to go in and help them put all the numbers in and put it in right, put to put the specifics in. But what they have is they have tables broken down based on the way that the brokerage wants to come over. There are 3 different ways a brokerage can choose to come over. They can come over as a self-organized team. They can come over as a standard team, or they can come over as a mega icon team. All of those 3 options are going to drastically change the way that the metrics work. There are standards, though. Mega icon teams have to be large and doing a lot of business. Standard teams have to have 10 agents. Like, there has to be standards to when they can join on those different tiers. Now, just because somebody moves over a mega icon team, that does not mean that individual agents can't still join their revenue share organization as self-organized. And so these tables have different tabs that you can click into. Once you get the line item basically breakdown by the brokerage owner, you can put them into these tables and see what the breakdowns look like. Because, for example, on a mega icon team, the cap goes down to 4,000. So naturally, the revenue share component of that will be lower, but it's going to have forced required splits. So it requires that there's a 25%, I guess, aggregate average.
Yeah.
And so what'll happen is, as long as they're charging that or more, that is okay. But outside of that, so you would be looking at team splits versus revenue share. Obviously, if everybody moved over and they didn't join a team, they just merged over as self-organized, everybody was just naming a revenue share sponsor, it's going to be just the revenue share component of it, which means that will go up and the team splits go down. And so because the cap goes to 16, so the people that are producing more will produce more revenue share. So you have to look at the balances of that and which ones are better options for each individual agent. And when you get set up with your brokerage integrations team, they will actually help that brokerage owner with what makes most sense for each agent as well, and what makes the most sense for them. And you will have probably a few different conversations with them throughout that process.
Yeah, and it's really important, like Garth was saying, he had a level of profitability to do some of the things he was doing because of the other fees and income opportunities he had as a broker owner, right? And so it's just like talking to a buyer, right? And you're going to go find them the property that matches what they want. If you just say, how many bedrooms, and how much land do you want, right? There's a lot of other things missing. So if you're just saying, hey, how many agents do you have? What's your split? You're not going to get the full picture. So you really do need to know, do they have graduated splits? Do they have caps? What other fees? Do they have a transaction fee? How much of that do they keep? All that kind of stuff, right? So you really need to know, when you look at the income side for them, how is it structured? And sometimes they go, well, everyone's on an average of this. But we also know that 80% of the production is being done by maybe the top 5 to 10% of their agents. And so, all of that production being done is at that really high split, right? So they go, well, on average, everyone's on this split. Well, but that's not the average of the production, right? So the bulk of the commission income being generated is being done at that higher split. So you really need to I even tell them, like, look, I don't care about the names. You can wipe the names off, but I need a line by line of every agent in your brokerage with their production and what their deal is, because I need to run the split based on their production or cap and everything else to know truly what you're making. And it's kind of shocking, but broker owners are just agents who decided to go do that, right? And so not all agents are business people, right? So many agents I talk to don't know their own numbers. They don't know totally how much they produced. They don't really know. A lot of them don't even know what their split is with their company. Well, I think I'm here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how do you not know? Right? So how many deals did you close? Where do your leads come from? I don't know. Right? Well, those people go on to become broker owners. Okay. And so I have sat in front of thousands and thousands of broker owners, and I have been shocked how many of them, I said, well, can you just send me a copy of your P&L? They don't have a P&L. They're like, I don't know. They have no idea. And so, they won't have so many of the numbers. And so it's important to guide them through, know the right questions and to take them through that process to get a feel for what it is. What's really cool is part of the biggest benefit that you can provide if nothing else, and this is the same thing talking to individual agents, is helping them think like a business owner and understanding their business. They will see an opportunity that they've never seen before because they don't know where their pain points are. They don't know how things are working or not working. And so when you help them uncover that and put their business together, consulting some of these folks, we go through and I'm like, hey, you're bleeding to death and you don't know it. And they're trying to grow and they're going to double down on the thing that is like bleeding them out. They're about to cut their main artery. Like they're just going to die faster. They're going to kill their business so quick because they don't understand their expenses and income. And so when you help them with that, some of them go, oh my gosh, like, if I had done this, I would have been out of business in the next 6 months. And so there's such a benefit where they realize you're helping them, have a sustainable business and to create a better opportunity for themselves. So it's a really good process to go through when you're new at. I mean, if a lot of you have some of you have owned brokerages and have big teams and you understand the numbers, so you can take them through. If not, I can definitely help you with that. And then, as Garth mentioned, we've got a great growth team. Frank Panuto is part of our group, so he's part of our FYR group, and he knows the numbers. He's run brokerages himself and everything else, but we've got everybody, and then all the way up through Leo for the big ones as well. So you have resources. You don't have to go through those conversations alone or try to figure it out. But you'll get good at it over time.
Yeah, yeah. So one other question. So this guy that I'm talking to, there's a couple of brokers here that I think are, potential candidates to bring over to EXP, but one of them had tentatively teed up a deal with Compass. And so in his mindset, I think, and he's still thinking this way, is that he's looking for EXP to just write him a big fat check like you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
So how do you transition him from that conversation where he thinks he's going to get this big fat check for this brokerage that he built, and what it would actually look like coming over to EXP?
Yeah, let's go into that. I did not have an NDA. They were trying to buy me too. And here's the thing. I turned down the money. I came here anyway. Here's why. I ran the actual numbers. I ran the projection math, right? So, how big is that brokerage approximately?
They do about 400, a little over 400 transactions, 115 million in total revenue, and about almost 40 agents.
Okay, so reasonable size. They're making, I don't know. Yeah, their company isn't worth more than $1 million. So, what you're talking about there is Compass being willing to pay. They're not going to pay more than 3x right now, but most of them, what they're doing is they've changed their process from just buying brokerages to trying to assume them. And it's a different process. They have changed it completely. And they want overrides on top of your company instead, sort of more like a franchise opportunity than it is a ownership. So it depends on what type of offer he's getting because they are changing their structure. But what I would say is let's assume he's getting the best opportunity and they're actually offering him the money. Well, he's making, you said 115. I'm guessing he's on 80-20 splits. So total was about 200,000. Okay. So if he's making about 200,000 and they're offering him maybe, let's call it 600 grand, right? Or something. Well, that would be over the course of 3 years. So let's look at this. He wouldn't get to continue to own his brokerage. He wouldn't get to continue his ownership at all. And if it continues to grow, that's great for Compass. If it continues to die, that hurts him. So let's assume the 600 though. So let's assume 600 just for basic fake numbers. So he's going to get offered 600, but right now he's making 200K a year. Let's say best case. These are really good case numbers for him, to be honest. But let's pretend. So at 200K, assuming net, here's what EXP for that size of a brokerage would do. They would give, I can't speak for the company, but if those numbers are accurate, they will probably offer 50% of the revenue of EXP for the first year, paid out increments. So probably, I can't speak for them, but that size is probably going to get that kind of a deal. So let's run the math on that kind of a deal. That kind of a deal, he's not going to be running based on his net profits. He's going to be running based off of the gross profits because he's going to eliminate his overhead costs. So once he eliminates the overhead costs and you look at half of what EXP would retain from the same group of brokers, let's assume you have, you said 400 deals. So 400 deals, well, it depends on whether they're coming as a mega icon team. If they came as a mega icon team, it wouldn't be as effective. But if they did, then you'd probably be looking at a revenue share of about approximately $100,000. So that revenue share of $100,000, they would probably still yield another $50,000 on top of that. So they would sweeten the pot a little bit. If they were a mega icon team, if they came over as a self-organized team, which would be different, because of the increased caps, they would probably be looking at an extra $100,000 or so across that first year. So it just depends. But what I would say is this: not only is that not as big of a delta as they think, because the first year, you're looking at, you won't get the 600. You're going to get 200 your first year, 200 the second year, 200 the third year, unless they're offering a big pile of cash up front, which would never make sense as an acquisition play in this field. It would never make sense. So if they are, maybe he should take that. I mean, if I got the offer, I'd be like, shoot, dude, they're going to hand you the pile of money and no strings attached. Maybe you should take it. I mean, be honest. But the reality is they're probably not going to do that. They're going to offer it over increments. So they're talking about 200,000 up front. Well, if EXP is going to be approximately somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000, then the question becomes, what's the long-term projection? Do they care about the immediate money now, or do they care about their legacy and passive residual income over time? And do they care about expansion at all? Because right now they want to get rid of the brokerage because of the pain. They're getting rid of it because of pain. They're not getting rid of it because they love that they sell to Compass. That's not what they're doing. They're in pain and they're getting rid of it. So what you need to identify is, do they just want to get rid of it and they don't care? Or would they like to continue expanding? They just can't with their current vehicle. If that's the case, EXP is a better play, because when you have 40, 50 agents, the duplication process of this vehicle alone will have them probably around 100 by the end of a year, without being any sort of crazy rock star recruitment people at all. Like, just marginal gains across the board will have them at 100. So so then you're looking at 100 agents 1 year in, and well, the 100 agents are gonna, if they ran as a mega icon team, probably 20 of those joined your team. You know, the other 30 just joined your revenue share organization. The 30 are going to make you, let's say on average, $30,000 a year, right? Because each agent's worth approximately $1,000 a year, regardless, as you skew it across the stage distributions. But alongside that, you'll have the other 20 that have joined your team, right? Because they joined your team and your revenue share organization. And so when you look at it and you say, okay, well, in year one, maybe we lose a little bit of money that we would have made, but in year two, then you're getting basically the same thing, but you still own it. And year three, you'll actually make more money than you were going to make from Compass. And year four, you wouldn't have owned anything and you would still own it and it would still be expanding. That's kind of the thing. Now, the other aspect of it is EXP's fast now with the 50% that they get on their first front line. The other question is, does this person have a business partner? If they do, you can make this pot even sweeter by stacking vertically. You stack them vertically and put the agents below them. That's why, I don't know if any of you noticed, but that's why to me, the most impactful reason of the FLQA reduction requirement structure was because we can now capitalize on broker owners and team leaders in a much more efficient way. So you take the broker owner and the partner, you put them on top of each other, you put the agents under that one. Now you're double dipping on the revenue share as well. You're getting the fast cap, plus you're getting the second tier. And effectively, you can earn almost 100% of all of the retained split of EXP for that first year, assuming that you were offered that deal by EXP. And there's all sorts of different kind of nuances you can play with. but you got to let them open the books before they make the decision. You got to delve deep into it with somebody at corporate that truly understands these metrics. And you got to also be on top of the people at EXP, because they have a lot of stuff going on. Your deal, your brokerage, they have a lot of brokerages they're working on at any given point. Does not necessarily always take precedent. So try to be the squeaky wheel. Definitely get some time, schedule appointments, be on top of them. Remember, they do work for us. They're here to help support us grow our businesses. So if you're not going to go out and kind of like get on their case to work with you, they're not going to be as inclined to do it, because they have a lot of other stuff they're working on too.
Yeah. Let me hit on those points real quick. One of them is just to clarify on the stacking, right? Before, you needed 40 to unlock all 7 levels, and you needed 5 to unlock level 2, 10 to unlock level 3, 15 to unlock level, right? So you went through that process. So what happened was, if there were 2 partners and they stacked, everyone went under the second partner. That first partner they only had level 1 unlocked, and that was their partner, who was probably not producing, right? And so they weren't getting, they were getting a trickle down. They were getting the expansion share, but not the exponential share, the larger payout of that money, right? And so now, with the first 3 levels being automatically unlocked and then reducing the number you need to unlock, you can get a massive payout on a whole lot of levels without needing the same number of agents. So it allows them to immediately get the benefit of that entire brokerage being under them, because the brokerage would be under them on their second level, right? Or so second and third level, depending on how it's stacked. So
I was a victim of this.
Yeah.
I had a business partner and I joined before they did this. So because of the FLQA requirements, so I went first, my business partner went below me. We put all of our agents that joined below me so I could make sure that I maximized our FLQA requirements. Then we started putting people under him.
Yeah.
But under the current structure, like, I mean, I'm a year and a quarter in, I have like 2 people on my 5th tier. Like, I have all the tiers. Like, I don't need that, like that. But in the previous structure, I did. So I've now left hundreds of thousands of dollars over time on the table because of that structure happening after I made that change.
Yeah.
So,
but now you can capitalize on it. We'll the staff, the team, right? The growth team leadership will help you guys, explain to them how to stack them and how to best take advantage of it. I can help you with that as well. And then the other thing is, these buyouts, the leverage buyouts for brokerages are, almost always, to me, like those guaranteed sale programs. Okay. Guaranteed sale programs can be great for the right person, but you have to keep them like first we have to list it at market value. Then we have to, go let it run its course, reduce the price over time with pre-approved set price reductions, right? To go all the way down to here. And then once it goes down to here, that's the list price, and it still didn't sell there. And then I'm going to give you 80% of that last, right? In the standard programs, right? 80% of the last list price is what you're going to get. If you have to get out of your house and you're willing to take kind of whatever you can get, then it works. So a broker owner who is looking to get out of the business and be done, and is willing to take less than what it's worth if they have to, then they kind of go, look, I just want the cash. I don't really want to be involved anymore. I kind of want to walk away. I'm going to ride off in the sunset. I'm sick. I'm tired. I'm, whatever it is, I'm going to go do something else. Partnerships are splitting up and we just want to get out, right? They go, great, let's do this. And best case scenario, we get this. Worst case scenario, we get this. We can live with that. We're done. And then they just wash their hands of it. And honestly, if they don't want to be involved moving forward, a lot of times that's the best move for them, right? It's like, kind of like, hey, just take it and move on, because it won't. If they do nothing, if they just come over and move people over and they are not willing or desiring to be involved, it's going to crumble over time unless their upline partners are super, super engaged, wrap their arms around that whole group and pour into them like crazy to keep them around. They're going to lose them. Right. And so, but they just have to understand that, you're going to get some portion up front. And to be honest, the upfront portion is typically fairly small because they want you to have skin in the game. And then you're required to stay in almost all of these agreements that I've seen, you're required to stay for the duration and still provide a certain amount of leadership and communication to keep your people from leaving. Right. Mm-hmm. And then what's going to happen is, as soon as an independent brokerage announces that they're going to be making a change, the vultures come out. Every Keller Williams team leader, every recruiting company out there that exists will be pummeling everyone there and offering them deals to come over. Like, hey, you got to change your logo anyway. You got to change your company anyway. You might as well come over to us. Oh, why go over to them? You're just going to be lining their pockets, blah, blah, blah. They give them all the scripts, and they will decimate your office as you come out, unless you're doing something. The most beautiful thing about moving to EXP is you can say, hey, I didn't do this for the check. I did this because it's best I'm moving to the relationships at the best. I could have sold my brokerage and taken cash. And instead, we're all going over here together in a partnership where now we're on the same level playing field, and you guys get the same benefits I got as a broker owner. When other people sell houses, you can get paid, and I'm going to help you go do that. We're going to grow together, and we're all going to build this. We're now partners. We went from me being broker owner and you being an agent in my brokerage to us being partners. And we're going to go grow this thing together and make a crap ton of money together. And I'm going to support you and help you in doing this, right? It's a whole different conversation than the sell. And so people are much more likely to stay when the vultures come out and they go, come over here. And all of a sudden now they're looking at it going, I can go from being an agent at this company and getting whatever deal I've got to being an agent at this company and getting a similar deal, maybe slightly better deal. Or I could go with you over here. We become partners and I can be like part of the ownership. I can get ownership in the company with stock. I can be part of this. I now become like my broker owner and get paid when people sell. That's if you do that introduction correctly on the front end, when the vultures come out to pummel all of the people from that brokerage, their mindset has changed and they see the opportunity different, and you're much less likely to lose people from that brokerage in the transition when you do those conversations correctly.
Exactly. Because when you start getting those offers, those are going to be predicated on those agents' retention. And the offer might look good, but there's a couple things. Like, I look back at me turning down the offers and I look at what happened over the last year, right? Because I'm year one, right? I would have had my first payout based on like the projection. Then I look at what would have happened. We saw this last year, a reduction of transaction count by like 40%. My earnout would have been nowhere near the original offer.
Yeah.
Even close. And that assumes I was retaining all the agents. If I didn't retain the agents, so you lose some of the agents, it doesn't matter. If you gain back new agents, those don't count for you. That's them. So you just lose the people, and you will have fall off always. Yeah. There is always churn. 100%. So if he's got 50 agents, you could say there's usually at least a 10% churn. So you're going to lose 5 agents a year anyways, at least, assuming things are going well. So if things are going well and you lose 15 of your agents and you were at 50, you've lost a third of your brokerage by the time you get that third earnout. And that assumes that the market's just as good as when you sold it, and you're going to get the similar thing because that's what they were projecting. But that doesn't mean that the market will be the same or the agent count will be the same.
Well, and that's standard churn, right? But when you sell the brokerage, if people loved you as the leader, but they realize you're no longer the leader, they now work for this corporate entity, and they don't have the same relationship. If you were at a 10% churn, which is amazing in the industry, right? It's typical in the industry is 30% churn. Right. Yeah. So if you got a 10% churn because you have a smaller, great culture office, but then you sell to a Berkshire Hathaway or whatever, now you're a corporate entity, they don't have that same relationship. Your churn rate will go up. Right. And then if transaction count goes down at the same time, you could literally be at 50% or worse of where you would have been in year 2. Right. And then year 3, it's down to like 20-25%. And your payout is massively smaller than what here's my number. I sold my brokerage for $1.5 million. And actually, you sold your brokerage for about $450,000 because that's what you ended up getting. I've seen it happen over and over again. So, so it's anyway, so those numbers are good. We're at the top of the hour, but guys, this is like the stuff that's here. These are the nuts and bolts in these conversations because, there is a reason that people move. As we were saying before, it's typically one of 2 things. Okay. They're either in pain and they need a solution, because things aren't working. They're not making the money they wanted to make. It was an ego play. It was whatever. And the actual net they're getting out of it is not very good, right? What do we know about teams? A lot of teams aren't really well run. And the team leader is actually making less running the team than they were making as a solo agent, right? They could net more money. On their own. Well, for broker owners, it's very much the same thing. So many of them are in pain because they've lost quality of life. They're spending all their time doing the 80% that they don't like, and they've lost their income, and they've lost their opportunity to go make more income because they're spending all their time running a business that's making them no dollars, right? So that's one boat. The other boat is they're succeeding, they're building, it's wonderful, but they can't go, they've hit that ceiling and they can't go any farther because they don't have the time and leverage at those pain points that Garth was talking about, right? That 10 to 15 and then that 25 to 35, they start to hit those walls and they're aspirational. They want to go build more, do more, be more, and have more opportunity, right? And they need to get the, the red lights turn green. They need to get all those roadblocks out of the way for them. And so that's where EXP does that, right? And then, so if they're considering selling in boat one, or just looking for what do I do to expand for boat two, this is the path.
I should say, if you have more than that, the next big benchmark, at least for me, that I've seen is around 80. 80 is the next big benchmark. So if you get an office bigger than that, then they're dealing with expansion issues and stuff like that, like I was. So, but most of the time they're all going to be smaller than 80 anyways. But if they get to 80, then that's a whole other conversation, because they're trying to build out a whole corporate structure and they're realizing that they don't know what the heck they're doing to do that. Yeah, that's when that aspect happens.
Yeah. So I would say, Garth, as we're wrapping up here, if you're approaching a broker owner, right, to have this conversation, or one and you're looking to get into the conversation with them, right? I want to go talk to this person. I'm going to go find them, or whatever, or they've come to me. We've talked about a few things. If this is a lot, right? You guys, what I wanted you to say, like, it's fairly complex, right? You're not going to know how to do it the first time if you haven't lived it yourself. Okay. And that's okay. That's okay. Don't let that deter you, because we have people here who have been through it. Garth's been through it. I've been through it. Our leadership team has been through it. We've got some other people that have been through it. Right. And so you have that. The best thing you can do is with zero judgment, right? Because it's an ego thing. Okay. With zero judgment, it can be being curious, being inquisitive, asking questions about their business. Just be like, how's it going? Like, how does this work? What's your brokerage? Like, what did you do? It's cool that someone opened up a brokerage. Not that, I mean, out of the, all of the agent count that's out there in the United States, a very small percentage have gone on to open their own brokerage, right? As an independent brokerage. It's a cool milestone. So respect that, approach it with respect, and be like, man, that's so cool that you did that. I would love to hear more about your business. I'm really curious. I think it's awesome. Talk to me more about it. They're going to tell you all the stuff. You don't need to necessarily even find out whether they're succeeding or not succeeding, if they're in pain or not in pain. Just know about their business. Then you go to someone who knows about brokerages and say, hey, I had a really awesome conversation with a friend of mine who owns a brokerage, and this is how they told me they do their brokerage. And based on that information, someone who knows the life can tell you immediately they're failing, they're killing it, but here are going to be their pain points. Here's where their head is right now. I know exactly where they are. Here's how we can have that conversation. Then we get on the phone with them, and then you say, hey, man, I love that conversation with you. Like, something struck me. I was talking to another friend of mine who's been where you are, and they had a couple of cool ideas of how we might be able to succeed together. Would you be interested in meeting them? Right. And they go, yeah, boom, set up a phone call or Zoom or whatever, or a meeting face to face, and then have that conversation. And then you bring in leadership and that kind of stuff. Garth, any thoughts on a different approach or process?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do, I mean, I even run ads to brokerages to help them grow. So one of the things that you can do, let's say maybe you've never gotten a brokerage or a big team or something like that, but maybe you do get a few agents a month, because that you are naturally trying to attract, and you're trying to, maybe you have a month where you get 4 or 5 or 6, or I don't know how many you're getting, right? You get that many agents in a month. Now use that and talk to those brokerages about it. Like, hey, I got 6 agents. I got 9 agents. Like, one of my best months, I was like, I got 33 agents this month. Would you love to do that too? And I'm talking to this brokerage that has 30 agents and they've been open for 8 years. Right. Yeah. And it's like, when you can do that, like, even with just the regular agents, you say, hey, look, I can do this. Do you want to know how? And then you set up a conversation for how you did it. Don't pitch EXP. You just explain how you did it. So when I have these conversations with the brokerages, I say, I built the 4 office brokerage with 137 in 4 years. The average brokerage to get that size never gets there. And if they do, it takes them 20 years or 30, right? And so I say that, and they say, oh, how did you do that? And what I'll do is I'll actually have a whole conversation with them, not about EXP. I just want to tell them, what value do I give to agents? How do I get in front of agents? How do I get those agents to be engaged and interested in having those conversations with me so that they want to join? And from there, we build rapport during that conversation, normally, naturally. And then I'm just giving free advice. I lead like we do with all things in the business world. I lead with value. Give them that value. They use it or they don't. It is what it is. But I say, here's value. Is that value? Then they say, yeah, I think I can implement some of these things. And I say, hey, just so you know, I wouldn't do that where you're at anyways. And they'll be like, what do you mean? And I'll say, well, because to be honest, the vehicle you're doing that in isn't going to get you the best outcome ultimately. Would you be open to having a conversation? Like, would you just be completely opposed to talking about why it is that I'm over here at EXP? And they'll say, I've heard about EXP, blah, blah, blah. They've all heard of it. They know it. They'll be like, I don't like it or whatever. And you say, totally get it. I 100% understand. But here's the thing. There's a difference between operating based off of emotion and based off of stats, logic, and numbers. And what I want to do with you is walk you through all of the specifics, the facts, the stats, the numbers, and see if this even makes sense. That way, forever, you can either say, this is a great opportunity and we end up partnering together, and that would be great. Or you could say, I was totally right. This is all BS. I hate this. And you never talk to another EXP agent again, but at least you can make a completely informed, factual decision. Because you're a business and you need to be making the best pathway, not just for you, but for your agents. So would you be open to it? I mean, we could go through everything in probably 30 minutes or an hour.
Awesome. So good.
Something like that.
So good, guys. So good. Garth, we got bonus time with you, man. Thank you so much for sticking a little later. But that was such great information. We appreciate it. I can see why you've been so successful leading up to being at EXP and then at EXP. I'm glad you're on our team.
I appreciate that.
If our group here, has some questions, are you all right with them reaching out to you to ping you on a few things as they're talking to some broker owners?
Yeah, sure. Reach out to me. Find me on Instagram, the Garth Ward. Very easy to find. Or just type in Garth Ward online. You'll find me. It's pretty easy. Yeah, just shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm happy to work with any of you. And yeah, I mean, technically, I don't like doing ads, but if you guys do want like one-on-one coaching on how to do this, I do that. And so I have legitimately one spot available. I just do that on Wednesdays. And so if somebody's interested in literal one-on-one coaching every single week to do this, you can reach out to me about it.
Awesome. Cool. All right, guys. Well, Garth, thanks again for bringing all of your experience and information. This was amazing. Guys, I hope you have a bajillion notes. This will go up on YouTube. So go back and watch it, share it with some other folks that in your group that's looking to do this as well. And have an amazing weekend. Happy FYR Friday, guys.
Thank you, Dave.
Cheers. Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.